The Sound of Home. Chapter 1. The Daily Complaint. I've lived with many sounds in my 73 years. The hum of refrigerators. The gurgle of pipes. The creak of floorboards that knew my weight better than I did. But no sound defined my marriage quite like the arrhythmic chime of our grandfather clock. Charlie. Margaret would call from wherever she happened to be in the house. It's doing it again. Doing what, dear? I'd reply, though I knew perfectly well what she meant. That ridiculous bong bong pause bong business. It sounds like it's having a stroke. The clock stood in our hallway, a mahogany sentinel that Margaret's mother had given us as a wedding present 47 years ago. Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore had presented it with great ceremony, as though she were bestowing upon us the crown jewels, rather than a temperamental timepiece that had already been running slow since the Eisenhower administration. It adds character, I'd say, which was what I always said. It adds noise pollution, Margaret would counter, which was what she always said. But here's the thing about Margaret. She could complain about that clock from dawn till dusk, catalogue its failures with the precision of a horologist, and declare it an affront to good taste and mechanical engineering. But God help me if I ever suggested replacing it. I learned this the hard way on a Tuesday in March, 15 years into our marriage. I'd seen an advertisement in the newspaper for a beautiful new clock, all gleaming brass and perfect timing, guaranteed accurate to within 30 seconds a year. Maggie, I said over breakfast, what would you say if I bought us a new clock? She looked up from her toast with an expression I'd later come to recognize as the precursor to a Category 5 Margaret event. New clock? What's wrong with the old one? Well, you're always saying it's. I never said I wanted it gone, Charles. But yesterday you called it a tin-eared tyrant. That's completely different from wanting it replaced. She buttered her toast with what I can only describe as aggressive precision. I've grown used to the sound. And that, as they say, was that. Chapter 2. A Marriage in Irregular Time. Margaret and I had what you might call a complementary marriage. She was volcanic, I was sedimentary. She erupted, I eroded. Together, we formed a landscape. Our children, David and Sarah, used to joke that we were like a sitcom couple, though I could never figure out which sitcom. Margaret said we were more like a radio play, all dialogue and dramatic pauses, which I suppose was fitting given the soundtrack our clock provided. Every hour, on the hour, give or take 5 minutes, that clock would begin its performance. First, the preliminary clicks and whirs as the mechanism gathered itself, like a tenor clearing his throat. Then the chimes 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause. 5, with that last one always arriving fashionably late, like a guest who'd stopped to chat with the neighbors. There it goes, Margaret would announce, as if we might have missed it. 5 o'clock, according to the clock that thinks time is more of a suggestion than a rule. It's character building. I'd reply. Teaches us patience. It teaches me that your mother-in-law had terrible taste in wedding presents. Your mother, you mean? I know what I said. But for all her complaints, Margaret was the one who insisted on winding it. Every Sunday evening, after dinner, she'd take the key from the little drawer in the hall table, and perform the ritual with the solemnity of a priest preparing communion. Clockwork, she'd mutter, cranking the mechanism. The most optimistic form of engineering. All these gears and springs, desperately trying to convince us that time is orderly and predictable. Is it working? I'd ask. Does this clock sound orderly to you, Charlie? I meant the winding. Oh, that works fine. It's the chiming that's having an existential crisis. Chapter 3. The Rhythm of Our Days. You'd be surprised how quickly the abnormal becomes normal. Our grandchildren grew up, thinking all clocks chimed with that distinctive syncopated beat. Little Emma, when she was 5, visited a friend's house and came home deeply concerned. "Grandma," she said to Margaret, "the Johnson's clock is broken." "Is it, darling?" "It chimes all at once. Boom, 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 boom. No pause at all." Margaret had smiled, pulling Emma onto her lap. "That's because the Johnsons don't know how to live with proper character. Our clock has personality." "Like you, Grandma?" "Exactly like me, sweetheart. We both make noise at irregular intervals and refuse to be fixed." I'd laughed at that, earning myself one of Margaret's looks. The ones that said, she knew I was laughing because it was true, not because it was funny. Our friends learned to work around it. Dinner parties at the Henderson house meant conversations punctuated by that familiar offbeat chime. New guests would pause mid-sentence, waiting for the final note. "Is it done?" they'd ask. "Give it a moment," our regular visitors would advise. "There's always one more." Bong! There it is. Margaret would beam as if the clock had just performed a particularly clever party trick. Chapter 4. The Complaint is Love Language. I realize now that Margaret's complaints about the clock were a form of affection. She had complaints about everything she loved. She complained about our garden. "Those roses are show-offs, Charlie, blooming when they feel like it instead of when the calendar says." She complained about our cat, Mr. Whiskers. "He's got the personality of a tax collector and the work ethic of a trust fund baby." She complained about me. "You read the newspaper in the exact same order every day, Charlie. Front page, sports, comics, obituaries. You're like a robot programmed by someone with very specific priorities." But she never complained about things she didn't care about. Bad restaurant service? She'd shrug. Traffic jams? It is what it is. Political scandals? They'll sort it out or they won't. The clock, though. The clock got the full Margaret treatment. "It's 5 minutes slow again," she'd announce. "It's always 5 minutes slow, dear." Well, it could at least be consistently slow. Some days it's 4 minutes slow. Last Tuesday it was 6 minutes slow. It's like it's mocking the very concept of reliability. I'd look up from my crossword puzzle. Maybe it's trying to teach us that time is relative. Einstein already covered that, and he didn't need a faulty chime mechanism to prove his point. These exchanges were our version of small talk. Other couples discussed the weather or what to have for dinner. We discussed the temporal inconsistencies of a stubborn clock. Chapter 5. The Silence. Margaret got sick in the fall. One of those illnesses that start small. A persistent cough, some fatigue. And then spread like spilled ink, staining everything. The clock kept chiming through it all. Through doctor's appointments and treatment plans. Through good days and bad days. Through the day we brought a hospital bed into the living room, because the stairs had become impossible. "Listen to that," Margaret said one afternoon, her voice thin as tissue paper. "Still can't get its act together." "Would you like me to try fixing it?" I asked, though we both knew I couldn't fix a clock any more than I could fix what was happening to her. "Don't you dare, Charlie Henderson. That clock has been driving me crazy for 47 years. I'd hate for it to develop good timing now and throw off my whole system." She died on a Thursday in February, at 3 in the afternoon. The clock chimed the hour about 4 minutes later. 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, 5. Like a heartbeat with a skip in it. The silence that followed wasn't the absence of Margaret's complaints. It was the absence of Margaret. Chapter 6. The Winding. The funeral was a blur. So many people, so many casseroles, so many well-meaning platitudes about time healing all wounds. I smiled and nodded and thanked everyone for coming, and then they all went home to their lives, and I went home to my clock. Sunday evening arrived, as it always did. Dinner time came and went. I sat in my chair, the one that faced the hallway where the clock stood, and I realized no one had wounded it. The thought hit me like a physical blow. For 47 years, Margaret had wound that clock every Sunday. Even when we traveled, she'd wind it before we left and immediately upon return, adjusting for the lost time with mathematical precision and verbal complaints. I found myself standing, walking to the hall table, opening the little drawer. The key was there, slightly tarnished, warm in my hand. The winding mechanism was stiffer than I expected. Or maybe I was weaker than I remembered. I cranked it slowly, listening to the spring tighten, imagining I could hear Margaret's running commentary. "Not too much, Charlie. You'll break the spring. Can a spring even break from overwinding? Do you want to find out?" I finished winding. The clock ticked on, oblivious to the change in personnel. Chapter 7. Complaints Department. Closed. David called on Monday. "Dad, how are you doing?" "I'm fine, son." "Really fine, or saying you're fine? Is there a difference?" "With you?" "Always." He was right, of course. David had Margaret's gift for seeing through my defenses, though he deployed it with more gentleness than his mother ever had. "The house is quiet," I admitted. "Do you want company? Sarah and I could come by more often." "I appreciate that, but I'm okay." "Really?" "I'm just adjusting to the silence." Except the house wasn't silent. It was full of sounds I'd never noticed before. The refrigerator hummed in three-part harmony. The pipes conducted entire symphonies. The floorboards creaked out Morse code messages I couldn't decipher. And every hour, the clock chimed its irregular rhythm. One evening, as it struck 7, approximately, I found myself saying out loud, "It's running 5 minutes slow again, Maggie." No response, obviously. Just the settling sounds of an old house and an older man. But I felt better having said it. Chapter 8. The Suggestion. Sarah came by on Saturday with groceries and her trademark combination of concern and practicality. "Dad, you can't live on toast and tea." "Why not? The British built an empire on it. The British also gave us boiled vegetables and foggy weather. Not everything they did was worth emulating." She unpacked fresh vegetables, real bread, actual proteins. "Have you been eating the casseroles people brought?" "Some of them." "Which ones?" "The ones that didn't require identifying the ingredients." She laughed. Margaret's laugh, sharp and sudden. "Fair enough." We had dinner together, proper dinner, and afterward she lingered in that way that meant she had something to say but wasn't sure how to say it. "What is it, sweetheart?" I asked. "It's just, Dad, have you thought about maybe updating some things around the house?" "What kind of things?" She gestured vaguely. "I don't know. New curtains. Different furniture arrangement. Maybe a new clock." I must have made a face because she immediately backtracked. "I just meant, that clock is so old, and it doesn't even keep good time, and it keeps time fine. Dad, it's 5 minutes slow. It's character building." She stared at me. "You sound exactly like Mom when you say that. Your mother spent 47 years complaining about this clock. I don't think she'd appreciate me replacing it now." "Mom isn't here to complain anymore, Dad." The words hung in the air between us, true and terrible. "I know that, Sarah." I stood up, started clearing dishes. "But I'm still here. And I'm keeping the clock." Chapter 9. The Routine. I developed a routine, as humans do when faced with unstructured time and unstructured grief. Morning. Coffee, newspaper. Front page, sports, comics, obituaries. Margaret was right about my robot-like consistency. Toast. Afternoon. Crossword puzzle, light lunch, attempt to read a book. Evening. Actual dinner. Thanks to Sarah's groceries and persistent supervision. Television, winding the clock. Wait. Yes, winding the clock had moved to my evening routine. Every night, not just Sundays. It gave me something to do, a small ritual that connected me to the Margaret-shaped absence in my life. David noticed during one of his visits. Dad, you're winding the clock again? Didn't you wind it yesterday? Can't be too careful. You can absolutely be too careful. You'll break the spring. Margaret's exact words, coming from our son's mouth. I almost laughed. The clock has survived your mother's winding for nearly 5 decades. I think it can handle mine. It's just. David paused, choosing his words carefully. Sarah and I are worried about you. You seem very attached to things that remind you of Mom. Is that a problem? It is, if it's stopping you from moving forward. I'm 73, David. I'm not sure there's much forward left to move into. Dad, I appreciate the concern. I do. But the clock stays. Chapter 10. The Conversation. I started talking to Margaret. Not in a I've lost my mind way. Or so I told myself. But in a she's been my conversation partner for 47 years and I don't know how to stop way. The clock's running slow again, Maggie. 5 minutes, like clockwork. Wrong clockwork, obviously, but still. I'd imagine her response. That joke doesn't get funnier with repetition, Charlie. Everything gets funnier with repetition. That's the basis of comedy. That's the basis of annoyance. Same thing, really. These imaginary conversations got me through the days. Through the mornings when I'd wake up and reach for someone who wasn't there. Through the evenings when I'd set one place at the table instead of two. Through the endless, echoing hours in between. The clock chimed on, and I narrated its failures the way Margaret used to. Would you listen to that? 4 chimes for 4 o'clock, and then it just gives up. Like it forgot what number comes next. Pause. Oh, there it is. Fashionably late, as always. Bong. Mr. Whiskers. Ancient, indifferent Mr. Whiskers. Would watch me from his spot on the sofa with what I swore was judgment in his eyes. Don't look at me like that. I told him. I'm processing grief. Your grandmother would understand. Mr. Whiskers yawned, showing me every one of his remaining teeth. Chapter 11. The Intervention. Sort of. Both kids showed up on a Sunday afternoon, which was my first clue that something was afoot. David and Sarah rarely coordinated their visits unless they'd coordinated their concerns. Dad, Sarah began, employing her gentle but firm voice. We need to talk. That's never a good sign. We're worried about you. David added. You've mentioned. We're serious, Dad. Sarah sat down across from me. You talk to that clock like it's a person. I talk to the cat too. Do I need an intervention for that as well? The cat is alive. David pointed out. Debatable. He barely moves. Dad. Sarah wasn't letting me deflect. We just want to make sure you're okay. It's been 6 months since Mom passed, and you seem stuck. I'm not stuck. I'm remembering. By winding a broken clock every night? It's not broken. It's just imprecise. It's 5 minutes slow. Consistently 5 minutes slow. I corrected. That's a kind of precision. They exchanged a look. The kind of look that said they'd discussed this beforehand and had a whole strategy planned out. Dad. David tried. What if we just looked at new clocks? Not to buy one necessarily, just to see what's out there. They make really nice ones now. Digital, analog, atomic clocks that sync with satellites. No. But, this isn't about the clock being old or inaccurate or annoying. This is about. I struggled to find the words. This house used to hold 2 people. Now it holds 1. That clock, with all its imperfections and irregularities and 5-minute delays. That's proof that 2 people lived here. That we had 47 years of complaints and conversations and Sunday night windings. You want me to replace it with something new and perfect and accurate? We just want you to be happy, Dad, Sarah said softly. I am happy. Well, happy isn't quite the right word. Content? No. Surviving? Getting warmer? I looked at the clock, ticking away in the hallway. I'm keeping time with a rhythm I know. This isn't for keeping time. It's to remember. Chapter 12. The Gift of Imperfection. After the kids left. Reassured, I think, or at least willing to pretend they were. I sat in my chair and listened to the house. The refrigerator hummed its 3-part harmony. The pipes conducted their symphonies. The floorboards creaked their Morse code. And the clock, reliable in its unreliability, ticked toward the next hour. I realized something then. Margaret hadn't complained about the clock because it was broken. She'd complained because complaining was how she showed love. Every "it's running slow again, Charlie" was really "I'm still here, Charlie." Every "that ridiculous chiming" was really "we're still together." The complaints were her way of marking time. Not clock time, but marriage time. Lifetime. Together time. And now, by keeping that clock wound, by announcing its failures to an empty room, by maintaining its imperfect rhythm, I was doing the same thing. It's 6 o'clock, Maggie, I said as the clock began its preliminary clicks and whirs. Well, 6:05 by any reasonable measure. But who's counting? Bong, 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 pause. Bong. There it is. Late again. You'd think after 47 years it would learn to be on time. But of course, I didn't want it to be on time. I wanted it exactly as it was. Imperfect, irregular, irreplaceable. Like marriage. Like memory. Like love. Epilogue. The sound of home. I still live in this house, with its humming refrigerator and symphonic pipes and Morse code floorboards. Mr. Whiskers is still alive. Barely. Still judging me from the sofa. The kids visit regularly. The grandchildren come by and ask about the funny clock. I tell them it's not funny. It's perfect. Every evening, I wind it. Not because it needs winding every day, but because I need to wind it. It's my way of saying I remember. I remember the complaints. I remember the conversations. I remember the woman who insisted this clock was terrible but refused to let it go. Sometimes, when it chimes. Bong, 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 pause, bong. I swear I can hear Margaret's voice cutting through the silence. It's 5 minutes slow again, Charlie. I know, dear. It's perfect. And somewhere, in whatever place holds the spirits of women who spent their lives complaining about the things they loved most, I like to think Margaret is smiling. Or complaining about the accuracy of heavenly timekeeping. Either way, I hope she knows. I'm still here, keeping our imperfect time, in our imperfect house, with our imperfect clock. Still listening for that final chime. Still waiting for her to complain. Still grateful for 47 years of wonderful noise. The clock ticks on. I wind it faithfully. And the house remembers that it once held 2 people who learned that love doesn't need perfect timing. It just needs someone willing to listen for the last chime, no matter how late it arrives. Bong.